My fellow bad guys, I, Lex Luthor, your leader, will speak now about my, Lex Luthor's plan. My villainous plan. Question the plan at your peril.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. Now, a few days ago, I made a video about like the 5 things or 4 things or whatever it was that I personally really want for comic books. And the last point I made is that I wanted my voice to be heard. I don't think that's something that's unique to me. I think a vast majority of fans of any hobby, or whether it be if you're into sports like your local team, whether it be if you're into movies, retro video games, comic books, you want to be heard. You want to know that your opinion on at least something matters, right? Now, I do not have the loudest voice in the world. I have a very successful YouTube channel, and I'm very blessed and happy with all the wonderful things that have happened here, and the great community that I've been able to be a part of, and have kind of joined me here. And I love seeing all of your guys' comments. I need to be more vigilant about letting you know that I am seeing all of them. But I read a vast majority of them because I definitely want to hear from you guys, because it is my YouTube channel, but it's our community. I wanted to make sure that I'm putting out the kind of content that you want to see. I want to, if you have ideas on things you would like to be discussed, I definitely want to approach those things in a way that I think everybody would enjoy. So I think a lot of times when people come into the comments section and they say, hey, I'm really interested in this, I will absolutely go out of my way to see if there's a way that I can approach it that will make sense for the channel and for the rest of the viewers. And a lot of times I'll be able to do that because I've been doing this for a few years now. I kind of know how to kind of cage things and approach things. And I'm hoping, I definitely hope that a lot of people, a lot of the viewers out there absolutely know that I do hear you. I do think that your opinions matter, and they're important to the long-term viability and success of what I do here on YouTube, and the fact that I'm able to come out here and talk about something that I do love. The greatest storytelling medium in the entire world. There's nothing better, in my opinion, than comic books as far as storytelling. Movies aren't better, novels aren't better, plays aren't better, television streaming, and whatever. If you want the best storytelling medium, comic books where it's at. I do get the feeling every once in a very great while that maybe a publisher hears me, or maybe, well, definitely I know that creators hear me more than publishers. There have definitely been quite a few comic book creators that have reached out, whether it's through back channels, say, hey, I appreciate what you're doing, or I like what you said there, you had a really good point, and things like that. But just as like the industry as a whole, that there's definitely a feeling that if they hear us, if they hear us, they're not listening. You know what I mean? Like, I made a video not too long ago where I brought Gervais Dargan. We like to have conversations. It's called It's Complicated. There will not be one this week because that would have been on Thanksgiving. So we took the week off. As far as that one, It's Complicated will be back the following week. And there was a video out there, and it just had been kind of sitting there from T. Franklin, the writer of Harley Quinn, Eat Bang, Kill Tour, where T. Franklin was clearly hurting, was upset, and was talking about some of their issues with the comic book industry and some of the things that they had endured. And one of them was a conversation, or I don't know, just an interaction with Mark Waid, where he was using racially charged language to describe a book that he was going to be producing. There had been no action that I could see as far as what was contained in there. It didn't seem like it was addressed. Seemed like something DC Comics should probably know. You would have imagined that somewhere along the way they would have seen it, but if they had done that, it seemed like they must not have cared. So I decided, hey, So good chance here. Let's talk about it. Bring my good friend Jervain. We have these kind of conversations on here and talk about it. I wasn't overly charged on there. I wasn't calling for this and that or anything. I wasn't, making mountains out of molehills. We went out of our way to be as calm and to present the information, have a civilized, normal discussion about it, the best that we could, and see if we could amplify what had happened and affect some type of change, or at least have this weird incident that had happened be addressed. I don't know about you guys. Does it feel like DC Comics and their executives heard us? Or even heard T. Franklin, as obviously it was brought to their attention. I cannot imagine, with some of the people that I know that do watch my channel, that leadership at DC Comics are not fully aware of it. If they weren't before, they absolutely are now. Do they care? Doesn't seem like it. This past week, well, it's been going on for a little while. Some people have been talking about that X-Men Green comic book. I talked about it here on my channel yesterday. Pretty disgusting, comic book. What is this comic book for? Is this courting, prepubescent eco-terrorists? Like, what is this comic book for? Why did you produce this? Why are you producing, repugnant stories like this that are, highlighting what are supposed to be heroes, even if they are conflicted or maybe flawed heroes, but essentially turning them to serial killers, over some pollution. That story is a train wreck. If you didn't see the video, definitely go check it out. The video I made on it, and definitely go check out the video that Perch, obviously he's a friend of the channel. And he was like, people need to know about this. We need to talk about it because it needs to be addressed. What do you think the chances are that Marvel will ever acknowledge that there was ever an issue with X-Men Green, that they shouldn't have produced it? We know that there's supposed to be more stories with the X-Men Green team of these juveniles. In some case, I guess Curse isn't even a juvenile. That's just a child going out and murdering people, going on a killing spree. No repercussions. No remorse, no. I don't know what the point of that story is, other than just to be disgusting. I guess to amplify or some type of very, very far out there ecological agenda. I guess if you use plastic bags, it's time to start murdering you, kind of thing. It's something a lot of people use. But that comic book's still going to be produced. There's going to be no change will be affected. The fact that Perch is one of the most level-headed critics out there of the industry, one of the most honest people, and a lot of people will actually criticize him, which I don't think is all that fair. But we're all allowed to have our own opinions. Well, you need to stop being a fence sitter. Well, I think he's just trying to be an honest broker and present the information out there and let people come to their own conclusion, which I personally I dig that. I think that's a very good way of actually presenting the information, coming in not so much with an agenda that I'm looking to make people think the exact same way I am. His idea is I want to present honest information, things that I think are actionable, whether it's good or bad, and see if I can affect change. I know that that's one of the things that he wants to do. And as calm as he is and as nice as he is, and I know that he could definitely go a little bit further because we do talk behind the scenes. He feels like that's the best way to address a lot of these things, and it'll never affect change because they don't care. They don't care if you're polite. They don't care if what you're saying has any merit or validity to it. They don't care if you're maybe not polite. I'm not always. I'm certainly not as polite as Perch is with my criticisms on a lot of things, and it doesn't matter. If you're not telling them exactly what they want to hear, they're not hearing you. They're not listening. Of course, we've seen, mass changes. Changes happen in hobbies, right? Hobbies go through ebbs and flows. I'm a big wrestling fan. Wrestling despite having a ton of new distribution and opportunities to go out there and enjoy the hobby or the sport of professional wrestling and go and enjoy it as a consumer. You know, you got multiple federations going on in the US right now. If you look at the viewer numbers, it's not very healthy right now. It's actually quite weak. And much the way the way Marvel goes is the way the comic industry goes, the way the WWE goes, the way the wrestling industry goes. And the WWE is at like kind of an all-time low as far as creativity goes. Look no further than SummerSlam this weekend, which was an absolute train wreck. No one cared about any of the matches because they didn't do anything to make you care. It's similar to what we're seeing with Marvel Comics. And they're driving their fans away, just like Marvel and DC are driving their fans away. Well, eventually they have to listen, right? Eventually, change has to occur if you're just hemorrhaging off readers. And when I say hemorrhaging, just look at the dollar numbers, and when you start throwing in manga and the great success there, and it looks like there's been this explosion as far as popularity of like mainstream comic books. What we think is the mainstream is what Perch would call indie comics. You know, mainstream in his opinion is like Dogman and manga, and indie comics are DC and Marvel just because of the amount of distribution and the amount of people that are reading them. But when we think about those things and you look at the amount of comics sold, you know, because you got to take the unit price in there, and sales are down. They have been dwindling, or if they aren't dwindling, they've leveled off. And a lot of times they're doing a lot of gimmicks to resell the same comic book to the same customer. We've talked about that plenty. But there comes a point where you've lost so many people that you have to finally listen, and you have to finally enact the change that Perch and myself and other critics out here are trying to affect. And there's certainly a ton of the viewers out there, just fans out there that are trying to affect change, that are trying to spotlight things that they see are issues, or trying to spotlight the things that they think are working. So maybe the good things will get more of that. Maybe we'll get less of the things that aren't working. And potentially we can bring some, lapsed fans back in and whatnot. But you can only have so many failures and not learn from them. You know, you can only have so many all different Marvel initiatives that failed miserably, and then kind of recreate them with Marvel now, or what we're seeing at DC Comics now. You can only do so many Marvel legacy initiatives that fail miserably, and then you're seeing DC Comics kind of transition into this now, and people know that they're not being heard. And not only does that cause frustration, but if you love something and you invested your heart and soul into it, and you get nothing back, not even an acknowledgement that you exist, or that your opinion matters, you can only stick around for so much for so long. Perhaps you just you go into the back issue market, right? Fuck it. I'm not going to read new comics anymore. I'll just read the old stuff. There's plenty of things I didn't read before, or plenty of things I've forgotten over time that I'd like to read again. And that's all good. Maybe I look for an alternative. Maybe I skedaddle over there to manga, see if the wares over there aren't more to my consumer taste. So maybe you lose a customer that way. Perhaps someone says, you know what? It's an expensive hobby. I thought I loved comics, but comics never loved me back. Perhaps it's time to find something different to do with my time. Maybe I want to get into, high-end Legos. Because hobbyists are still going to scratch that itch. They're still going to spend their money. They're still going to spend their time. They still want to do something and be a part of a community. But they want to be a part of a community that cares and values their opinion. Now, some people might be happy to be on the fringes of a community, maybe support crowdfunding and just interact with other people that love comic books that are also disenfranchised. But there's going to be a lot more people that maybe they don't go to YouTube, or maybe they do roam randomly. but they don't buy comic books anymore. And eventually, like, well, why am I even following this stuff? Because it's quite clear that there's no reason for me to come back. I've been monitoring what's been going on since I left 4 years ago. There's been no change. If there has been change, it's only been worse. Why am I still holding on, right? I still listen to podcasts about the WWE product, even though I've canceled my WWE network. It should be gone here very soon. The last thing that I was holding on to was NXT, and it's pretty much dead. But I have an alternative. I've moved over to AEW. I got my Fight Network, and I buy all the pay-per-views. I'm able to do that here in the Philippines, and I don't really need the WWE. Eventually, if they can't turn it around, I'm gonna, why keep having to glance over to see if it's time to return? The problem is that Marvel and DC are going to be so late to the party, and they're going to be so late to react to what they know is happening. They're going to be so late to acknowledge the fans that have been supporting the industry for decades, that by the time they do change, by the time they do listen, and by the time Perch and myself and other critics and the fans out there have been able to have their voices heard and affect change, it's going to be too late. There are going to have been too many people leave. They're going to have been burnt too many times. There's going to be one too many DC Rebirth initiatives where it felt like maybe this is what I've been wanting the whole time, and to have it just ended after a year, because it seems to happen faster and faster. There's going to be one too many future states. There's going to be one too many Ten of Swords and Hellfire Galas. There's going to be one too many empires. One too many Iron Man 2020s. One too many disappointments, to where it's no longer worth it to even check in on the hobby that you've been invested in, or the community that you've been invested in, even just to look back and see what's going on. And I want to return, but eventually you could only be burned so many times. How close are we to this? I don't know. Everybody's different. Everybody's got their own cadence. Everyone's got their own breaking point. Everyone's got their own, personal, ideas of what they want and when they've had enough. Me personally, I still have a large amount of hope. It's sort of like, all you do is cover the negative stuff. Well, I said, this is what I say to the people that are like, you only cover negatives, or you only have negative opinions. You only watch the negative videos. It's quite clear by the thumbnails what is positive coverage, what is negative coverage. The neutral stuff, is probably more ambiguous as far as thumbnails. If you choose to only look at the negative stuff, that's on you, not me. I do plenty of positive coverage. Probably not as much as I had been in the past, but I am very frustrated right now. Am I close to just stepping away? No, I'm not. I absolutely love the community that I have here. This is enough. If DC and Marvel never right the ship, and they continue putting out 5 comic books a month worth reading, as long as I have this community and I have this channel and we're having a good time, and hey, I can zine comic books for the next 10 years. It's no skin off my back. I enjoy doing it. I have no problem. I am a cynical person. I find making fun of stuff kind of fun, but I also love talking about the stuff I really enjoy. But so I'm not stepping away anytime soon. I imagine Perch isn't all that close to stepping away, but we've certainly seen a lot of big name YouTubers that were solely comic book channels. They might not ever cover a comic book anymore because they got so fed up. Because everyone has their own limits. And I definitely see a lot of people. I've had a few people with the last few months say, hey, you know what? I really enjoy your channel. I think you're a good guy. But I can't keep holding on, or I can't keep coming back knowing that it's never going to get better. And that's unfortunate when you drive people to the belief that there's no longer hope. You're hitting a point of no return, at least for that single customer. And eventually you hit enough people, and that's lights out, baby. Comic books aren't going away. I hate to break this to DC and Marvel. Comic books are going to go on with or without you. Nobody's going to be stopping the manga trade. Nobody's stopping the the Dogman and stuff. Those comic books. There is an entire generation of comic book readers that are being raised on these graphic novels and these characters. They are going to graduate to new comic books sooner or later, whether it will be Batman and Spider-Man, or it will be maybe a Cyber Frog, or a Soul Finder, or a Common America on the crowdfunding circuit, or is it going to be, is it going to be Geiger, at Image Comics? Is it, where's it going to be? Is it going to be solely in the graphic novel market? That's a place that I think that pretty much what used to be mainstream comics is completely whiffed on. They're writing graphic novels and releasing them in 8-part segments. It's absolutely ridiculous, some of the ideas that they're doing. You see what Ed Brubaker's doing. Those guys actually know what they're at least making some. They're testing the market, which in a way that I think is going to be successful over time. Do I think Substack is going to be the future of comic books? No, I don't. But comic books do have a future with or without DC and Marvel. And it just by everything that we see, there's going to be a crisis at DC, and it's going to give some people hope. And it's 6 months. They're going to have burnt that bridge, and people are going to realize there wasn't real change. It was only the illusion of change. DC is still who DC are. And Marvel's going to do something. They're going to throw a new name on the top, next to the Marvel logo, and say, "Oh, this is what you've been wanting." And they're going to burn some more people when they don't deliver again. But comic books are going to go on. But I don't know that Marvel and DC have a significant part of the future, in 5 or 10 years. Are they going to be industry leaders? I have doubts about it, because there's far too many alternatives that are directly catering to the wants, needs, desires of the consumers out there for people to stick around and wait for. You got a lot of people. There's very few people that can wait around forever. You know what I mean? And in comic books, aren't waiting around for DC and Marvel. They're moving on without them. And I think so are the consumers. So that's the worst part of all this. You see these things, and I think most everyone's in the same boat that I am. They want their voice to be heard, but they know that it isn't being heard. And that's likely, more than anything, to be, I don't know if it'll be the death nail, but it'll be the factor that basically send Marvel and DC to the minor leagues, and essentially insignificant outside of their production as far as movies and video games and streaming and stuff. Their comic books are already an afterthought. Eventually, they're just going to be a thing that nobody even realizes are there, including comic book readers, unfortunately. So, I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think there's a chance within the next 5 years Marvel and DC finally acknowledge their fans, acknowledge their customers, and start listening? I'm very skeptical. I'm definitely thinking cynical on that one. It could happen, but I am exceptionally hopeful about the comic book industry and the future. It has a very bright future. We just don't know if DC and Marvel can be a big part of it, is my opinion.